Hello, welcome to The Story of Woman, the podcast exploring what a man-made world looks like when we see it through her eyes. Woman's perspective is missing from our understanding of the world. This podcast is on a mission to change that. I'm your host, Anna Stecklein-Lau, and each episode I'll be speaking with an author about the implications of her absence. How we got here, what still needs to be changed, and how telling her story will improve everyone's next chapter. Hello and welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. We've got a special episode for you today. This isn't an interview conversation, but instead it's a compilation of answers to a couple of the recurring questions that I ask at the end of most interviews. What does feminism mean to you? And what is the story of woman to you? I love asking these questions and hearing everyone's different opinions and perspectives on them because we know that the word feminism means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some seeing it as equality, others as the thing that is going to be the destruction of the nuclear family and, in turn, the world. You know the type.
Feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women easier access to the mainstream.
Bitter, nasty, ugly, man-hating, empty horror show. Lesbianic sort of feminism.
Which is what feminazism was essentially all about.
And that is why I love asking this question. This word still carries so much baggage, but language is vital for change, and I'm sick of feminism getting a bad rap. Even if it's getting better, we aren't there yet. So what I would really love, in addition to this episode and just putting all of these wonderful voices and answers together, is to hear from you all. What does feminism mean to you? What is the story of woman to you? Woman being the collective group of female-identifying people, both past and present. So if you feel so inclined, send me your answers on social media or through the website. Or even better, send me a voice note with what you think, because if I get enough of those, I could compile them together to create another episode similar to this one, but with all of your voices. I want to hear how people, women, men, non-binary people, everyone from around the world answer these questions. And I want to add all of those answers into the narrative so that we can keep shifting the perception of feminism and of women. I would also love to hear from you about what authors, books, and topics you would like to hear next. I know my episode releases have been coming out a bit slower over the summer, but I've got a lot more coming your way this fall and winter. So to give you a little sneak peek, I will be speaking with authors who have written about gender inequality in the workplace, about trauma and how our bodies store it, about gendered emotions, you know, those pesky things that control women but have no impact whatsoever on men. I'll also be speaking to an author who wrote about how moms make the best advocates, along with some practical tips for getting started as one. And I'll also be talking to an author about her book on sex, and yet another pervasive gap between women and men, the pleasure gap. So a lot of great conversations ahead, but please do reach out. Let me know, what books are you reading? What authors would you like to hear from? What topics do you think that I should cover? I'd love to hear it. And as always, if you like what you hear and you want to help, which as a one-woman operation with a full-time job, I would greatly appreciate, there are a few things that you can do. The Story of Woman is now on Patreon, which will give you access to bonus content as well as ad-free episodes. And all of that goes toward production costs. Or simply share it with a friend. Recommendations are always the best way of spreading the word about podcasts, so I really couldn't do it without you. But that's enough for now. Please do get in touch if you have feedback or ideas or want to collaborate. You know, the idea for this episode actually came through from a listener. So shout out to Vanessa for this idea. I love hearing from you all, so please don't be shy. But for now, enjoy these marvelous sound bites from some of women's greatest storytellers. What does feminism mean to you?
Just everybody being treated equally. I don't want women to get a leg up above men. I don't want female domination. I just want us all to be treated equally as individuals.
Feminism isn't just equality or equity, but also healing.
Feminism is about, I think it's about equality and equity. The term obviously has got it tied just to issues for women, but I think overall, feminism is a particular branch of a very much needed fight for equality of opportunity and equity of outcome.
Feminism is real equality of opportunity and space for everyone to be their best selves in whatever aspect. So big shout of intersectional feminism. If it's not intersectional, we're doing it wrong. So just create a system and a society where everybody is celebrated and invited to be their true best self.
Equality. All equality.
Feminism means, for me, respect and dignity and justice for all people. And, you know, feminism isn't something that, of course, benefits only women. Feminism is a way of respecting the diversity of identity and personhood and humanity that, to me, should begin from a position of care and inclusion, of raising up individual and collective voices and prioritizing people who've been historically marginalized and proceeding with a strength and a conscious sense that being silenced is part of this sort of patriarchal social order. So that's what I feel. I feel like it's a joining together, it's a collective, collaborative voicing of humanness.
Well, I'm going to borrow a bit from bell hooks and say that to me it means an ongoing intersectional movement toward the end of gender and other hierarchies.
Feminism is equality. It's about creating a world where everyone is free to be who they want to be, whatever identity they choose, however many identities they want to choose, and all of those arbitrary rules and hierarchies that come with gender and race and all of our other made-up classifications are gone, and a full diversity of humanity is seen not just as natural, but as beautiful, and no one's trying to change that and to make us all the same as one another.
I love this question. So for me, feminism is about locating gender inequality at the intersection of other axes of power and oppression. So I know that that's kind of a lot, right? But it's about fighting to ensure that everybody has the right to live freely and recognizing that when we're thinking about intersectionality, right, being a Black queer woman is going to lead to having a specific set of experiences and a specific set of needs. And in order to make sure that feminism itself is meeting its promise, right, we have to make sure that we're always thinking in terms of how gender intersects with these other axes of inequality.
To me, feminism is equality. It's the default. It blows my mind that there's anything other than feminism. It's just the way that the world should be.
I interpret feminism as being a response to being a marginalized gender. So that can really cut across all kinds of things. And I think it's worth mentioning that that can cut across things that I don't believe in, including white feminism.
Feminism has been this amazing gift that has helped me understand the world in which I live. Because growing up, I didn't necessarily understand all the unfair things that were happening to me, and I didn't know how to navigate them. And when I started researching and diving into feminism and using it in my professional life, I finally gained those tools and understanding about what was happening around me and how to manage them. I think before I had all that, my responses to a lot of unfairnesses would be very emotional because I just didn't know how to manage them. And feminism has been that guiding light to me that has really made a difference in how I get people to treat me well and how I set my own boundaries and how I defend myself, how I find strength in myself.
I think it's the radical notion that, you know, women are humans.
What is the story of woman to you?
The story of woman is a story of creation.
I think the story of women is the great untold thing that will save us. I do think that almost all the things that we have categorized for different reasons as feminine and therefore excluded from things like, for example, economics, bringing them back in, bringing that story back in is where the solution to almost all of our problems will come from.
The story of women is reclaiming the vision of the world that belongs to us in a different way. Like, it's just telling our side of the story and the feelings and reclaiming a world that made us a side character and see how we can say it from our point of view.
The story of women is this story of who has been exempted from dominant narratives. Absolutely it is. The story of women is an extraordinary story that sits beneath what we're all told is history with a capital H, right? So I've presented in Unwell Women this history of how male physicians across the centuries have pathologized women's bodies and minds. But underneath that, women were always caring for bodies, for the bodies of other people. They were always learning, they were always processing information, but it's that stuff that hasn't ever been sanctioned as knowledge. So to me, the story of women are those untold stories, those hidden stories, the things that have not been in the past considered proper knowledge. It's everything that sits underneath these dominant practices, and it's wonderful, and there's so much there to be told and discovered.
To me, the story of woman is a story of overcoming. For me, throughout my life, there are things I've had to overcome physically and mentally, and for every time I have had to overcome, it's made me, more beaten up, but a little wiser, a little braver, a little stronger. And I hope that that's also the story of women, is we'll continue to evolve and overcome. And this kind of ideal end state for me is obviously equality, perfect equality, and for us to be wiser and stronger and braver as a result of having to get there.
The story of woman, to me, is an incredible story of resilience and achievement. I think women have not only contended with having to overcome, but they have thrived in this world that has relentlessly oppressed and silenced them. Women have not just adapted to those realities and gotten by, but against all odds, they have made monumental contributions to the world, while at the same time closing the gap between themselves and their oppressors. So I see the story of woman as a source of endless inspiration and really a playbook for how we can continue to evolve from here.
I hope the story of women is more triumph than tragedy. I think at this moment, we're still going through a lot of tribulations. So maybe you can't have the triumph without the tragedy. That's the sad part of the story. Because I still think we're working on a lot. We have a long way to go. But I'm hopeful.
The story of a group of people who've been ignored, treated as invisible, interruptible, incompetent, the four eyes, if you like. For no good reason. Yeah, a group of people who've been unfairly treated.
Oof, multifarious. I mean, we're just all really different, aren't we? And I don't think we should be lumped together the way we so often are.
The story of woman, to me, is really a tale of gender expansiveness, right? Where we reflect on multiple experiences and positionalities in relation to the identity. And we make space, right? We make space for the history, for the feelings, the different kinds of feelings that people might have about the word and the identity. And most importantly, that we also think about the evolving possibilities, right, for a womanist future. Like, what does that look like? What does it mean? How can we work together to create a more just future? So it's about history, it's about the present, and it's about the future, all really centering an emphasis on the multiple experiences of womanhood and that the identity of being a woman.
I think the story of woman is not just relegated or mandated to the term woman. I think that the story of woman is actually a story of marginalized genders broadly. Yeah. And I think there have been many and continue to be many who are, one, unfairly really shoehorned into two genders. So that's one tier. And then on top of that, are made to really follow these scripts and mandates that are meant to control them and to suppress them. So that would be the story for me.
I would say it's a story of struggle and perseverance, but also kind of collective wisdom and care.
The things we are afraid to feel, to speak, our stories in the silence, I think. Every silence has a story.
I think the story of woman is still unfolding. I think it's not a singular journey, and we are all on it together. And each of us has the power to write parts of that journey. The more women share our stories, the more we speak out and use the platforms. We've got tools right in our hand, on our phone, social media, whatever it is, whatever platform you have. The more we speak out, it may seem like change isn't happening, but you know, one person by ourselves, it feels like we're isolated. But if 10,000 of us do it, well, guess what? We're an army now. So let's all do it and change the world together.
Thanks for listening. The Story of Woman is a one-woman operation, so if you enjoyed this episode, there are a few small things you can do that make a big difference in helping other people find the podcast and allowing me to continue putting out new episodes. You can subscribe, leave a review, share with a friend, follow on socials, become a Patreon for access to bonus interviews and other content, buy me a metaphorical coffee, which helps with production funds, or head to the website and check out the bookstore filled with hundreds of books like this one. If you purchase any book through the links on the website, you support this podcast and local bookstores. So feel free to do all your shopping there. All these options are in the show notes. Anything you can do is appreciated and makes a big difference in elevating women from the footnotes of our story to the main narrative.